Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today I have some more lessons from India. I want to talk about the food. I want to start with the food this time. Because if I start talking about those cows again, I just won't shut up. And let's note, the cows are not food. India is a very largely vegetarian country. It must be the most in the world. Let's see. Okay, so some numbers say about 30% of Indians are vegetarian. That's a pretty high number. I wouldn't be surprised if it was higher, but maybe they're including even if you used some animal oil to fry potatoes or something. I don't know. But I don't think I met a meat eater outside of near the end of my trip where I started looking for meat just because I was curious how it was made. Because that's the fascinating thing about India. I went for about 2 months eating so much good food and having foods that I ate commonly that I wanted to go back to very often that I didn't even notice until 2 months had passed that I had become vegetarian since I had landed in India. In the 3rd month, I went to this place that had chicken lollipop that I always wanted to try. And chicken lollipop is like a chicken wing fried in some oil mixed with a whole bunch of delicious spices. So you get this red, spicy, savory sauce, and then they fry the chicken wing in that, and then you get a big plate with the chicken and sauce on top of it. But they call it a lollipop because they sort of scrape and push all of the flesh from the chicken wing up toward the top, so the bone is exposed. So you can just pick it up by the bone, your hands don't get as dirty, and then you can eat all the meat from the top of the wing. And I ate it, and the sauce was amazing. The sauce was so crazy good, and I was just blown away by it. This chicken lollipop sauce from Red Chili in Atala in Bhubaneswar. And the Red Chili is the name of the restaurant. And it was spicy and savory. It was just such a wonderful combination of flavors. And I was enjoying it so much. But the texture was kind of weird. And I was chewing it. And I was it's not bad at all. But it's definitely a different texture I'm not used to. And then I was oh, right, it's chicken. And I was when was the last time I had chicken? Wait, when was the last time I had any meat? And I realized that I hadn't eaten any meat for the past 2 months, and I hadn't even noticed, because every day I was looking forward to the food I was used to eating around the town, or used to cooking, and none of that had meat in it. It was all vegetarian. And so delicious and deeply complex that I didn't care there was no meat. I didn't even notice. Taiwan is the only other country I've ever been to where I tasted the vegetarian food and thought, oh, okay, I can see how I could become vegetarian very easily if I had this kind of food. And I was just sort of surprised and blown away. I was wow, I've been vegetarian for 2 months now. That's pretty good. I am not anymore. I'm definitely going to eat all of these chicken lollipops. These are some of the most delicious chicken wings I've ever had in my life. So good. Oh my God, I can't describe how good those chicken wings were. But all the other food in India is also so good that I could not care less if there was meat included in the dish. And often I wouldn't want it because I know that would make a meal heavier than I would want it to be. So let's go over a few of these meals that I very regularly ate in India if I wasn't cooking for myself. And I mean, they cook so well. The food is so good in India. I cooked for myself fairly often because I want to experiment cooking with paneer. But most of the time, I just got food from the so many good food stands on the side of the road. You know what? Actually, I'm going to add this in here right here. There was a 3rd very long holiday right before I left, and I met someone on the side of the road who told me that I had to find one of these pop-up street carts that was selling mutton, because while India is largely vegetarian, mutton stew was a traditional dish in India for this particular holiday. And I did track one down. There were not many people selling meat at all, let alone this special mutton stew for this holiday. But I found one group of guys who set up a stall, and they were up for like 2 weeks, and I went there, I think twice to get the mutton stew, and he was right, it was absolutely delicious, and very much reminded me of the prune lamb stews you can get in Morocco. Super popular, amazing flavor, not super thick, but a very deep flavor, and yeah, a thick, long, stewed piece of lamb. It was fantastic. So I did have one other meat in India that I just remembered. So much good street food. So good. Oh my gosh, so good. So, food. Let's get into it. Probably the first one I should mention are momos, because I think I started eating those first. And most of this is going to be street food or the local fare that you get at like the local restaurants. I generally appreciate the more traditional, maybe less polished flavors where someone would be like, no, this has too much salt in it, or there's too much garlic here. Like, yeah, give me that particular flair. And I usually get that in the local mom and pop restaurants in every country. I'm more attracted to some established family tradition or historical recipe rather than whoever makes the best standard recipe. I was not interested in visiting any sort of place that would cater to a more international crowd or tourists. I was interested in very local life in India. So that's why I wanted to live out in the farms in this little town. And I constantly got the question, like, what are you doing here? Why would you live here? There's nothing here. But there was a bunch of stuff there. I've already mentioned that whole last episode, the first one, all the cows and just a fascinating Indian society outside of the city. So I was having a ball. And as soon as that first day happened, I ate food and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to enjoy my time here. And it would have been easy to just stay there and eat delicious food forever. I think the visa's for like 6 months and I can leave and re-enter the country as many times as I want. So I think I can still use it for the next 5 years or something. So maybe I will go back on that same visa. I could have stayed there longer, but I did 3 months and the food was amazing the whole time. The first thing I ate, actually, I got vada and idli, which are two different rice patties steamed. The vada is steamed and the idli is fried, I believe. Okay, we're going to get into this. So I studied Hindi while I was in India, but when I got to Bhubaneswar, they were like, oh yeah, no one speaks Hindi here. And I was like, oh, okay, because I had spent a little bit of time learning the basics. But the local language is nowhere. I can't learn that anywhere, not in any real practical way. And I didn't learn the most popular language of Bhubaneswar, which I can't even remember the name of at this point, because I learned so many local words and Hindi words, mostly local words, for different things. I mean, my brain was, and it's such a different language than I've learned before. It's a very complex language. I just failed utterly. There was no way to learn the local language, no practical way anyway, unless I stayed there and just lived there forever. But I like traveling right now. And then the Hindi I learned was basically useless because it was more like a city language. All the Bhubaneswar people were like, no, we just speak this normal local language. So I'm going to call all of these foods by the names that I was taught, and some of them are correct, but India is also extremely regional. They have 28 states, and they're huge, and the country is huge, and there are a billion, and there's more than 1.5 billion people in that country, and different states call the same foods from different names. So this is from the northeast state of Bhubaneswar. So these names are what they call them up there, as far as I can remember. And I know some of these are correct. I know most of these are correct. Like momos, it's definitely momos. And paneer. Paneer's all, But some of them, like chana poda, I believe that's what it's called. So if I get any of these wrong, Indian people definitely at me, talk to me. Bitofarambler@gmail.com or all of the socials. I love learning. I'm interested in learning it. But this first food that I ate, the second food, sorry, still vada and idli. Well, okay, whatever. We'll start off with vada and idli. So they're these little steamed savory rice cakes, compacted, but very, very fluffy. And they were very different depending on the guy who cooked them. And some of them were crazy good. Like the texture was perfect. And they come with what I consider curry, but it's not a curry. It has a specific name. It's just a specific type of dish. Like you can imagine if I called pea soup curry. That's what I'm doing now because I don't know the name of the lentil soup that I was given. And it was a very spicy thing. So in my head, I'm just like, that's another curry. But then every food in India, or like every food in the world is a curry because every food is a mix of spices and yeah. But it came what I would consider a breakfast curry. And it's this like lentil soup that you dip the idli in. Vada. But the vada are the not fried ones and the idli are the fried ones? No, the vada are the fried ones. So they're these savory rice cakes, very fluffy, but they fry the vada. And then the idli are the unfried ones. And you dip it into this lentil soup and there is just such a strong flavor and so many flavors, but it's not overpowering. And at least in Bhubaneswar, the food was not spicy. I had to ask for spicy to get spicy food when I started getting chili dishes. But I literally ate my first vada, which was the fried version of this savory rice cake, with a scoop of the lentil soup. And I sat down and looked at it and was just bowled over by the depth of flavor in this simple, unassuming lentil dish and rice cake. I never would have guessed how strong the flavors could be and how satisfying and how distinct. That's the other thing. A lot of the lentil soups might look similar. They're brownish. They have spices in them. But the tastes are distinct. They are separate dishes. And this breakfast dish that everyone ate, and it cost nothing. It cost 50 cents for a bunch of vada idli and the soup. And it just absolutely delicious. These old guys brew it up at home, and then they'll go out in the mornings and sell it to people with the rice cakes. You just go up and ask for a couple, and they give you what they have. And I tried many different iterations of vada and idli because it's so popular, at least where I was, that everyone very often in the early morning was selling a different version. Well, okay, yeah, I guess I did get a few versions because I mostly narrated overnight, and then I would only eat once a day in the evening. But in the beginning, I wanted to try all the different cooks. But that first guy I got, he was good, but someone else took me on a motorbike in the morning to get his favorite, and that guy's was even better. His lentil soup was insane. So if you're in India and you're going to get breakfast, you're probably going to run into this. Idli, vada, and then it comes with a brown lentil soup. And you can recognize the guy that sells this breakfast vada, idli, and the brown lentil soup by the shape of the pot. It kind of goes out and then back in, and then there's a very broad aluminum lip of the pot that he cooks the lentil soup in. And once you see it, you realize that everybody selling that same thing cooks it in that exact same pot. So if you see that pot, that's where you want to go get your breakfast. It almost looks like a stretched wide aluminum flower vase. It's a very distinctive looking pot. So just imagine a standard flower vase, and then if you stretched that out so it was 4 times as broad, and then aluminum instead of glass. Packed full of tasty, fresh lentil soup. And it's a simple dish. It's rice and a spiced lentil soup, but it's one of the best dishes. Where did I come from before that? Oh, Thailand, which has great food. But India has better breakfast. I don't think I ever really liked the breakfast in Thailand near as much as I liked this simple bowl of lentil soup and rice cake, especially the fried one. The idli are the unfried, and they are good. They're tasty, but they're just rice. The fried ones, I don't know what they do. Maybe they put some spices in the oil when they fry it, but it is... Oh, you know what it is? This is very cool. I'd never known about this either. In Bhubaneswar, anyway, they don't use corn oil or vegetable oil and obviously no animal oils. They use mustard oil to cook. And that was a revolution in itself to me because I like cooking a lot and I like experimenting. And I was looking around for oil to cook the paneer with when I bought it. And I couldn't find any oil in the stores. I didn't recognize oil anywhere. I did see stuff that looked like oil, but it was a different color. And I was like, it's probably not oil then. Because everything's in Indian, in Hindi, written down. So I kept looking, and then I finally just asked a guy, like, is this oil? And he was like, yep, that's butter oil. And I was like, okay. And he said some Indian word oil, and I was like, great. And I brought it home, and I cooked with it, and I translated it, and it was mustard oil. And then I looked that up, and it's very common. That's what everybody cooks with there. And I asked the people, my hosts that I was renting the house from, and I asked some people I met, and they were like, yep, everybody, we use mustard oil here in Bhubaneswar, or in Orissa. It's very popular to use mustard oil instead of another vegetable oil, because it has not a strong acidic flavor, but it does have a tang of mustard in there. And it's not overpowering in any sense, but it's pretty great because it's such a subtle flavor in the oil that you can cook anything with it, and you just get just a great spiced flavor to anything you cook with it. So these vada are also cooked in mustard oil, and maybe that's why I like them so much, but there's a thin, crispy covering of the fried rice over the rest of the rice cake after they fry it. And then you dip that in lentil soup, and it's like the best thing ever. So that breakfast frickin' rocks. And since I'm going to talk about the mustard oil, I might as well bring up the paneer now, because once I had the mustard oil, I was ready to start experimenting with Indian cooking, and I was very excited to start experimenting with the mustard oil. So I went and got paneer, which, if you don't know paneer, I'll just say paneer in the American way. Paneer, you get milk, and then you pour in some acid like lemon juice or vinegar, whatever, and then all the curds will separate out of the milk, and you strain it, and then you have cheese. And it tastes incredibly fresh. I mentioned in the last episode how fresh milk is in India. U.S. American milk always tasted weird and sour, still does to me. Don't know what it is, if it's the antibiotics or the monoculture feed that U.S. American cows get, but milk tastes good to me in India. And paneer, made from that milk, this cheese, Indian cheese, is absolutely delicious. And since it doesn't melt, you can fry it or grill it. You can use it with anything, the exact same that you would cook up chicken or some kind of meat. Paneer is the perfect protein substitute. It's very nutritious. It has not too strong a flavor, so you can use it with everything. And you can cook it in pretty much every way because it doesn't melt. So I started with a simple stir fry with this paneer. And actually, I bought the first time the paneer from the supermarket, and it was incredibly good. And it cost $1 for a lot. It was very cheap for a big piece of paneer. And I was not huge, but I was like, that's enough for one meal for sure. And it's less than $1 for that amount of paneer. And it was very good. I fried it up. I didn't cook it long enough or at a high enough heat, I think. So it just tasted like heated up cheese, and I ate it. But I ate all of it because it's also not very heavy. It doesn't stick in you like a cheddar or some other mozzarella might sit in your stomach. Paneer is very light because it's cottage cheese, so it's just the curds. It's delicious, but it doesn't sit heavy in your stomach after you eat it, or after I eat it anyway. And yeah, so that first experiment with mustard, it tasted great because there was mustard oil on it. It was a little bit fried, but it was mostly just hot cheese. And I was like bready, sturdy cheese. Paneer, onion, garlic, chilies, some pepper, all lightly fried in mustard oil. Delicious. I ate it. It was great. I think I used a couple spices that were sitting around in the kitchen. And I remembered that there were all these soup packets in all of the supermarkets, and you could buy one soup packet for, I think it was 10 cents equivalent, and you get you get a full bowl of soup out of that. You just put it in a bowl, put in hot water, you get great soup. And I liked the soups, but I also liked the idea of using the soups as a liquid to pan fry my paneer with. Or add as a sauce after I fried it with the mustard oil. So I went down, I got one of every soup they had, and I settled on the manchow one at the end. It's like this green, savory, spiced, a little bit spicy soup. And sometimes I would have that with dinner, but often I used it as a sauce for whatever stir fry I made. And man, just using the mustard oil to fry the paneer was so much fun. I could fry it up and then add on one of these soups with a few slices, some garlic and some potatoes and onions, and just get a fantastic stir fry meal in all these different flavors. And it was pretty simple, easy to cook, and tasted great because of the mustard oil and all of these soups. But yeah, the mustard oil was really interesting because most countries I'm in prefer very common animal oils or vegetable oils that are fairly tame and they don't have a lot of flavor. This mustard oil it's not very strong, but you definitely do get a soft glance of mustard with whatever you fry. I like that, and when I cook again, I want to go to Indian supermarkets. If I have a house where I'm cooking for myself regularly, I think I want to use mustard oil as my normal cooking oil rather than anything else. The only other thing I would use is probably beef tallow, because I did like that when I was using that in Colorado. But actually, I like mustard oil better, I think, in most situations. I bet tallow would be better in some, but yeah, mustard oil, great to cook with. If you like cooking and you like good spices and flavors, I would strongly recommend checking out some international markets and getting mustard oil to cook with. Or if this is totally normal to you and everybody knows about mustard oil except for me, let me know. Okay, so we'll put my cooking aside now because it doesn't matter that much. The mustard oil was cool to learn about, but I just cooked paneer in a bunch of ways. And it doesn't matter because all the other food was better than anything I cook anyway. All the local restaurants and all the street carts food was, better than anything I made the whole time I was in India. Except maybe I did make some really good curry udon with handmade udon noodles, and that was pretty good. But that's a lot of work. So we will start with momos because they are the first dinner I ate in India. And momos are very similar to fried siomai or jiaozi pot stickers, but like they're the bags of gold shaped ones instead of the lateral clamshell looking pot stickers. So they just make a little thing of dough, they put in paneer or vegetables and then twist up the top and fry it or steam it. And I got the fried ones. I got the steamed ones a couple times just to see if I liked it, but the fried ones, they fry stuff so well in India. It's always just the outside, crispy shell around whatever they're frying, and then the inside is not oil soaked or anything. Soft, heated all the way through, frickin' perfect. And then this was interesting too. I got 2 bags of stuff, and one was like ketchup, and that was terrible. And then one was this very interesting white sauce that I hadn't had before, and it tasted a little like sour cream, something like that with, I don't know, it was a very smooth flavor, but it was interesting. And I got my vegetable momos. Instead of continually repeating how cheap everything was, just assume everything is way less than $1 because everything was way less than $1. So I got these momos and I got 6 of them in a little bag, and I took them away because I was worried, what if they don't taste good? I didn't want to eat it and then be like, oh, and then walk away from the guy who just cooked them for me. So I got them to go, and then I ate them. I tried the first one around the corner, and it was incredibly good because all of the vegetable mixes they use to fill their sandwiches or their momos or the golgoppas I was talking about, all the vegetable mix is many types of vegetables, usually like 6 to 10 different vegetables minced, and then there's ginger in there and garlic in there and just all the good flavors right there with a bunch of other powdered spices thrown in there occasionally. Not usually with these vegetable mixes actually. They're usually just a bunch of awesome fresh vegetables that taste great inside a ball of fried dough. And yeah, so I ate the first one. The first bite, I was like, okay, I love this. I'll be getting this all the time. And then I tried the red sauce, and it was ketchup, and I was like, gross. It was like McDonald's ketchup. I threw it away. And then I tried the white sauce, and it was this very light but very tangy dipping sauce. And I was like, yup, yes, thank you very much. And I ate all of it, and it was delicious. I ate all 6 of them in probably less than 5 minutes. I was like burning my mouth, but it tasted so good. And I was like, well, I got to try something else tonight anyway, so I got to hurry up and finish all these. Jeez, my mouth is watering thinking of all this good food. Oh man, I really miss Indian food. I haven't thought about it in a while, but I would love to eat some golgappa or some momos again. Anyway, I ate these and I was blown away and I loved the sauce. So I went back the next day and I asked the same guy, what is this white sauce? Because he was a kid. He was like 15 or something like that. He could have been 20. I don't know. I'm too old now to tell ages. No, he was younger. He was like 15. And he told me it was mayo. And I was like, mayo, what is mayo? And I tried to find it on the dictionary. And he kept being like, mayo. And then I realized he was saying mayo. It's mayonnaise. I was like, oh, mayonnaise. And he's like, yes, mayonnaise, yes. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like maybe just like the milk, just like the cheese, the mayonnaise also tastes better here because the quality of the ingredients are better. The quality of the cream and the milk is better. And then I went to the store looking for Indian mayonnaise because I wanted to try it as a dipping sauce because this tasted like this regular mayonnaise he gave me. He held up a bag after, I think, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, mayonnaise. I noticed it said veg mayonnaise. So it's actually a vegetable-based mayonnaise. And it tasted just like if you got aioli now in the States. It's like with a side of aioli. That's what this was. It was a very strong, tangy dipping sauce that did not taste like old, farty eggs, which is how mayonnaise generally tastes to me. Musty, runny, stale egg farts. But this vegetarian mayonnaise just tasted like a fresh, tangy dipping sauce, specially made by a chef, but it was just in this normal plastic bag when he pulled it out. So I got some and took it home. I hadn't seen mayonnaise in a pouch before, so I had to go to all the local supermarkets until I found these large aluminum bags of vegetarian mayonnaise. Because there was this flat fried samosa that I cannot remember the name of now, that another guy on the stall sold, and he'd sell, and I'd get 10 of these like fried fritters and just dip them in the vegetable mayonnaise. And I can say because of vegetable mayonnaise, I like mayonnaise now. Still don't really like normal mayonnaise very much. But it was so soft, fluffy, and creamy that you can make anything you make normal mayonnaise with this vegetable mayonnaise. And the flavor's way better for my money. And I went back to that same kid and got momos just from him for like the first week because I wanted to try other people's momos, but his were so good. I was like, well, they're not going to be that much better. And honestly, they weren't. Like I found other good momos, but they were about as good as that kids. That's the other thing. All the street food, there was a general high tier of quality. I guess because so many people were hand making the food with fresh ingredients, that everything's going to be pretty good. And if you wanted to make money, you had to make it really good compared to the other people, or in line with all of the other street foods selling similar foods, because everyone sold momos. There were momo stalls everywhere. And I did end up going to a different one more often, but that was just because it was closer to my house. I had to ride my bike for like 30 minutes, 25 minutes to get to this first guy I went to. And I would still go to him occasionally, but there was another one only 15 minutes from my house, or maybe 10 minutes from my house. And I would go there pretty often. And I got to the point where they just recognized me. Like, 1 momo to go, vegetable. Yes, thank you, sir. So this is like the most basic street food there is also, momos. So if you go there, you'll be able to find it everywhere. And all the Indian people from Mumbai all seem to look down on street food, but it's fresh. It's fresh vegetables, freshly made dough. They make it all. I mean, it's certainly not food to be looked down on, in my opinion. It's all just like fresh vegetables. It's all fresh ingredients, handmade fresh ingredients. It's fantastic. And like I said, I never got sick once, so I wouldn't worry about the quality. Although that's what the Mumbai people would tell me. They'd be like, the street food might not be healthy. You have to be careful. And I was like, totally, I'll be careful. And then I would run away and go get some more momos. I got momos a lot. Like, a lot. I ate more orders of momos than days I spent in India, probably. So I was there for 3 months, but I definitely got more than 100 orders of momos overall. Because many days I would get 2 orders of momos. Maybe that's excessive, because some days I went with the chili gobi. Okay, yeah, but I got a lot, okay? I got a lot. And it was good. Okay, and the natural evolution of momos was that I found a fantastic, actually, that guy became my favorite. This third guy, who was him and his son, and they had a slightly larger area, and they had tables and chairs to sit down because they were farther out of even my small town. And so they had a little storefront to themselves, and they used some orange-brown powder on theirs they put on. And for some reason, that gave the skin more flavor or something like that. I don't know why, but their momos were better. So I started going to their momos, especially during the 3rd month. I think that's when I discovered them. Or at least the last 4 weeks I was in India. And at first I just got the momos because I didn't recognize the other Hindi word on the sign. And then I realized it said potato. And I was like, oh, great. And I got it. And oh my gosh, that seriously became my favorite food in India. So he yelled at his son to get a potato, and then his son puts it into a spiralizer and just spins it around by hand. And then you have a spiraled potato, it accordions out. That's on a skewer. And then they put the skewer into a vat of oil and fry the potato. And then after it's fried perfectly to this like orangey light brown, so the skin, so it's fried on the outside, but there's still potato on the inside. They sprinkle a bunch of spice mixes they have on it, and then throw a thin strip of the vegetable mayonnaise on it, 1 or 2 of those, and then give it to you on a plate. And you have a full potato, fresh, recently fried, and spiralized, so you get this, you don't have to bite into a potato. You get like, the outside of a French fries is the crunchy skin. It's so delicious. That's what this whole thing is. It's all the best part of the French fry. It's all the delicious fried outer part of the French fry, the spiralized potato. And when I ate that, I think I got a second one immediately after I ate the first one in like a minute. I was like, yeah, 1 more of those for sure. And from that day forward, I would go there, and his son always recognized me, and he'd be like, potato? Yes, potato. And 1 momo vegetable. And sometimes they didn't have the vegetable momo because it was amazing. So sometimes they only had the paneer. And the paneer was still like 9 out of 10. But I was like, okay, I'll get the paneer. Because I was so spoiled on the vegetable momo. That was, for me, undoubtedly 10 out of 10. Just stellar. And that was basically how I spent the last month I was in India. I would work on an audiobook or the podcast. I had started it by that point, like planning things out and organizing things, this podcast, and trying to come up with the scripts and just remember things so I could talk about them with any sort of authority or memory. But I had a lot of fun thinking up how I was going to structure and do this podcast. And then after I worked on whatever I was working on during the day, I would get on my bike and go out for some exercise, and I'd ride around for an hour or two. And then I'd end up at this guy and his son's spot and get vegetable momos and 2, sometimes 3 spiralized potatoes. Spiralized, fried, spiced potatoes with a topping of vegetable mayo. Just a thin ribbon. And it tasted just as good as the first time every time I went. Oh, and there was this old man who sold glass bottles of Coca-Cola or Pepsi. No, it was whatever there was an Indian equivalent of Coca-Cola. Whatever that was, I got glass bottles of that. And yeah, I'd bring 1 or 2 of them over. And the first time he was like, no, because you're not allowed to bring the glass bottles away. But I explained, maybe I just motioned, I don't know how I explained it. I was just going next door to eat, and then I would bring them back. And the old guy was like, oh, ba-da-da, da-da-da. Okay, you back. And I was like, yes. So that's what my routine became. Work at home, exercise on the bike, go get my vegetable momo and spiralized potato, a couple glass bottles of soda, watch some dumb BS. I was watching MacGruber at the time, the 2nd season. I clearly remember that I'm just guffawing out loud, eating my tasty food. And the dad and his son are like, they're probably ecstatic that I eat as much as 4 people by myself. And I met some people while I was eating at that restaurant too. 2 of the people were really funny. They were these 2 Muslims. They were wearing that cool full robe with the boxy circle hat. Should have learned the name of those clothes. I didn't. But they were at a table and everything else was taken up, which is pretty rare. So I asked if I could sit with them. They said yes. And it turns out one of them spoke really good English and nearly fluent, and then the other one spoke conversational. So we started talking. And they were shocked to see me, which I was pretty used to by this point because, as I mentioned on the first Lessons from India episode, I was the only non-Indian I saw from when I got out of the airport until I went back to the airport. The whole time I was in Bhubaneswar, I was the only non-Indian. And as a result, especially because I was living out in this town, I wasn't even in the city. I was out in this rural town, and then I was actually living a little bit outside the town in a farm field. And this favorite place of mine to get the momos was an extra 30 minutes by bicycle to ride over to. So I was way out of where you would see any tourists ever. And actually, this one guy stopped on his motorbike and he kept shouting questions at me and I had to yell back, but he was on a motorbike, so it was really uncomfortable to yell. And we had this whole conversation for like 20 minutes while riding. It was pretty crazy. But anyway, back to these 2 guys. I found out they were Muslim partly because of the dress of the one guy. He was in like full regalia. I can't remember if it was a holiday or something, but it looked really good too. It was all like decked out in gilded seams, and it was this deep royal green. But anyway, so he saw my potato, and I was eating the momo, and he was confused. He was like, "You like this? You like Indian food?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, dude. I'm here like every day." And the guy in the front, like the guy who owns the shop, turned around, said something to the green-robed guy that I assume was, "Yeah, he eats here every day." He said something like 2 potatoes. He said something I understood, and I was like, "Yeah, I eat these all the time. They're great." And they talked to me, and they actually taught me a few words. I believe they were kochi, which is to eat, piuchi, which is to drink, and then sochi, which is to sleep. And they taught me a bunch of other words, but I was like, I can remember 3 words a day. I cannot remember the other 20 words you just told me. But those are the important ones to me anyway. Eat, drink, sleep. So kochi, momo, piuchi, the cola, and then sochi after I eat and drink. And that was another interesting thing. They don't have a lot of beer in India. It's just not as widespread as it is in other countries. Like, you don't see advertisements everywhere for alcohol, and the shops are kind of more like vice shops. They're like little hole in the walls rather than large grand affairs where you can party full of around refrigerators full of different kinds of beer. So I tried a couple Indian beers, but they were like meh, and I was like, what do I even want it for? Like, I drink beer often when I'm bored or like sometimes when I'm celebrating, but in India, I was learning something constantly, and I had this interesting podcast to work on. I had a bunch of stuff going on, so I didn't want to lose time by drinking. So during this time I was a vegetarian, I also only had 2 beers the entire time I was in India, the whole time I was in India. So I was drinking soda, piuchi, my cola, whatever it was. And after they taught me those words and they asked a few of the basic questions, what are you doing here, what's your work, and all that, they asked me, or the main guy did, who was doing most of the talking, asked me, and you are Hindu? And this is a pretty common question because it's high. It's like 98% of Indians are Hindu. Let me check. No, that's 94% of the global population. It looks like about 80% of Indians are Hindu, and then there's some Muslims and Buddhists and other religions, but it is largely Hindu. And almost everyone in India is religious in some way. So he asked me, are you Hindu? And I said, no, but I'm very interested in the religion and religions in general. And he was like, good. Are you Christian then, right? You are from the US, so you must be Christian. And I was like, oh, no, I'm actually not religious at all. And he looked super confused, which is, again, the response I get to that statement, which I've said many times in India. Because I never felt unsafe in India. And I'm going to put a caveat on that because I hear so many things about women being assaulted or molested. And I don't know how accurate that is because I'm not one and I wasn't traveling with one. But I never had any problem in public with, I never had any problem with violence and I never felt unsafe. But I generally don't, so I'm not a great baseline for that. I also haven't heard anything, and I know single women who traveled in India, and they also said they were fine. But yeah, ask someone you know, because I only have my experience there. But I felt very safe the whole time I was in India. So I was comfortable answering these questions with what might be a surprising answer for a lot of Indians, that I don't have religion. But he wasn't quite sure he understood what I said perfectly, I think, because then he was like, oh, you are Catholic, because the United States has many different Christian, Catholic, and Protestant. So you are Catholic then? And I was like, oh no, I'm not religious at all. And he like nodded, but like was, squinting. He was like doubting what I was saying. He's like, you're Jewish. And I was like, no, I'm not religious at all. Just no religion. Oh, and every time he asked me a new question, like which God I believed in, before that, he'd get my answer and then he'd turn to his friend next to him who wasn't speaking as much English, and they would speak rapidly in whatever the local language is to each other, where Green Robe would be translating my answer, and then his friend's eyes would grow wide every single time. And then he'd turn back to me and be like, so you are Catholic, and then give me the new question. So they were like trying to figure out what religion I was. And I was like, no, I'm not Jewish, no religion at all. He's like, well, no, maybe not religion, but what God do you believe in? Which God? And I was like, I just don't really believe in one God from one religion. And his whole body, he had to absorb that blow, I think, or that exclamation. And his whole body sort of drifted backward, settled into the chair. His arms were at his side, and he just looked up. And his friend was like, "What did he say?" in the local language. I wish I could remember. Hang on, let me check, because I don't want to just call it the local language every time I mention what they speak. Oh my gosh, I should have remembered. It's Odia, because the province is Orissa. So the language is Odia. So everybody was speaking Odia, and I knew a little Hindi. Didn't help at all. So I guess Kochi, Piuchi, and Sochi were Odia. I guess? I can't remember. I don't know. But I was pretty happy to learn those 3 words, so I was happy to have this conversation with the guy. I was very grateful for him teaching me just a little bit so I could say something to all the people speaking Odia around me. I deem it as a sign of respect to at least attempt to learn what of the language I can. And it was impossible because it's not on Duolingo. Odia isn't anywhere to study. You can learn something on YouTube, but that's a very inefficient method of learning for me, language learning. So anyway, I told this guy that I was not religious and no God. I believed in no God, and he leaned back and his arms were by his side, and his friend turns over and asks him in Odia, "What did he say?" And he turns back and says, he explains it in Odia. I assume that's what they were saying because you can just read it. He was following the conversation until that point. And then his friend who wasn't speaking leaned forward and he was like, no, okay. Maybe he speaks wrong? What God? Muslim? We are Muslim? Allah? And Christian? Jesus? And he listed some gods. He was like, so what God are you believing? And I was like, yeah, no gods. I just don't believe in one God. And then he did the same thing. He leaned back and they looked at each other with the most confused, that meme where the guy has that confused look on his face? They both looked like that at each other. And the one who spoke better English was like, but how do you not believe in one God? How do you not believe in God? Look at everything, the animals in the sky. How do you not believe? And I explained, I was like, I've been to too many places where humans like you believe very strongly in their God, just as strongly as you do, as far as I can tell. And everybody believes in their God as strongly as you do, but all of the gods are different. They also share a lot of history. So it's very difficult for me to choose one God that makes the most sense to me. And I don't know, maybe there is a God. I don't see any evidence for it, and I don't see any evidence at all, zero evidence, that one God is more correct than another. And he said something like, well, God is great, and that's weird. and I was like, yeah, that is weird. I know. I get it. In a country, such an extremely religious country as India as well, and I'm from the States, a pretty religious country already. I get why you might think it's odd that I don't correspond or agree that one religion could be more right than any other. I just can't see. I can't see that one religion could be more right than any other. But he was nice and we kept talking, and then they went off and he said, it was good to meet you. Maybe we'll see you here again. And he tried to make a plan. He was like, on Thursday, come here on Thursday. And I was like, if I can come here on Thursday, I will. He's like, no, you have to. Make sure to come. And I was like, if I finish work and I'm here on Thursday, I'll see you then. And I did not go back there on Thursday, but I did see them a couple other times. I just didn't want to, he had taken a social media video and he was like, this is, blah, blah. I understood America, and he was introducing me to his social media following, and he was telling them he taught me Sochi Piuchi, the Odia words, and I had to talk them into the phone. I didn't have to, but I was playing along. But I obviously didn't want to do that every 2 days. So I staggered my visits so that I didn't see them all the time. Or I showed up later because they were usually there earlier. One time they were there and I just rode my bike straight by and went back half an hour later when they were gone. Because I don't mind having a conversation with people, but like I said, I don't want to be stuck into a routine too often with people I'm not planning on establishing a long-term relationship with. especially with social media. I would not want to do any other social. I think he pulled out his phone to do a social media the second time, and he asks me both times. The first time, and I said yes, and the second time I was like, no, thank you. I don't really want to do that today. And he respected my wishes. But that was the only mar in this restaurant. The restaurant was so good, so I went there pretty much every day for the last month I was in India. And I just kept getting vegetable momo, paneer if they didn't have the vegetable, but they usually did, and then 2 or 3 spiral potatoes. And both the guy and his son were like, how do you eat so much? And I was like, well, I usually only eat 1 time a day. So, and I had to explain that whole thing. So I love momos. Fantastic. They led me to probably my favorite thing to eat. One of them. I loved everything. I loved everything so much. The food in India is so good. But that spiral potato was just a treasure. Spiral potato lives in my mind. Especially with the particular Indian spices they do, and they always cooked it perfectly. So good. Okay, so let's move on to chaat. Very good, delicious. Can't believe how strongly the flavors come out in Indian food. I don't know how they do it, honestly. Maybe it's because everything there was cooked in the mustard oil, so it just makes everything pop. But all the vegetables were just so strong and delicious, everything. So chaat is like Indian fried rice. There'll be a guy with what looks like a big cake of rice made up. And then when you order it, you ask for a plate. He gives you a plate the size of a hubcap, and he scoops on an incredible amount of spiced rice with all these different vegetables, with some chutneys on top or dips like garlic sauces, and it's absolutely delicious. Like I thought it was kind of boring looking because it was just white rice with some vegetables, but it tasted like a party. It was delicious. It was so good. And that chaat is the most boring dish I had in India. That was the one dish where I was like, I don't need to get that every day. I don't even need to really get that again. I understand. I did get a couple more times to try, but I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I could still eat that every day and it would be great. Great dish. But the other ones were just better. They were even better than a delicious fried rice dish with multiple chutneys and sauces. My host took me to get chaat, though, and so it was kind of cool eating it the first time because my host, the guy who I was renting the Airbnb from, and the people who helped him build it, we all went out together and walked around this famous food stall street in the city. And it sucked because we had to drive in there, and the traffic is insane. I just rode my bike everywhere, and I never got stuck in traffic. But we walked around for a while, and then he showed me papdi chaat. And he ordered it for me, and I ate it, and it was really, really good. I think he even paid for it, which again is like 30 cents, everything. And the food's so cheap, it's insane. But that's still a very nice gesture. Extremely hospitable, by the way. If I haven't made that incredibly clear, India is extremely hospitable, and everyone was to me very happy to play host and introduce me to things, and they were so excited to have a non-Indian, maybe for the first time ever in that town. I'm not sure, to explain all this stuff to. Actually, you know what? I can say definitely for part of the town, because I met this student later who confirmed for me that I was the first non-Indian to visit that town as far as she knew, and that she had ever seen in her apartment building. So the chaat was fun to get with a bunch of friends. It was very delicious. It was not as exciting for me, even though there were a ton of flavors and it was really good. So let's move on to something that did knock me on my ass next. Chili mushroom. Kind of a boring name, but it has 50 competing flavors going on, and none of them are too strong. None of them are too sour or too spicy or too salty or anything. It's just a perfectly balanced red sauce that they fry chopped mushroom and chopped chilies and onions inside. And then they give you a big plate of chili mushroom with a couple rotis, like flat, sort of Indian tortillas, you can think of them as rotis, or like a thin pita. And you shove it in your face. And I ate the mushroom chili dish, and I was like, oh, this is the best thing I've had. Because the momos are very good, the potato is very good, and the potato is probably still my favorite, just because it's so simple and delicious. But the chili mushroom has all the flavors all together, equally deep and savory and treasured by me. So when I had my first chili mushroom, I was like, holy crap, I have to go eat everything that says chili whatever on the menu, because chili mushroom, chili gobi, whatever, sounds boring, but whatever that flavor is that they put in all chili stir fries, it's delicious. And it's all vegetarian. So I love, obviously, the Chinese food just as much as I love these flavors. But when I'm eating the Chinese food, I'm always like, boy, this is a lot of oil and meat, or something like that. This is a lot of oil and fat. And then with the Indian food, it's all vegetarian. So I can eat a whole plate of it and just be like, and it's kind of healthy, I'm pretty sure, because it's all vegetable. So I feel better also about eating all this vegetarian food. But man, chili mushroom, just stir-fried, amazing combination of spices dish, became my favorite full dish. Spiralized potato, I will always remember you. But that chili mushroom just... I immediately said to myself, oh, this is the best thing I've had in India. This is it right here. So I tried the other chili stuff, but the chili mushroom was the best. It's just, I like mushrooms anyway. It's so fantastic. I got that a lot at other restaurants, and it's always fantastic. Actually, I got it crappy at one place once, and I was like, what's happening? You guys can't make bad food. And then I just went back to all the good places. And then I discovered chili gobi, which I mentioned 5 minutes ago, and that's the same thick red sauce with the two rotis, but with cauliflower, gobi. Cauliflower instead of mushroom. And I only got that because they didn't have mushroom at this super local restaurant. They only had the cauliflower. But that was as good as the first time I ate the chili mushroom. I probably would have liked the mushroom more, but the cauliflower was incredibly, like, you know when you get really good cauliflower and the flavor comes through strong and it's like a distinct vegetable instead of a bleached broccoli, which like crappy cauliflower can be kind of bland. This had very strong, this was obviously extremely fresh cauliflower. And I was like, oh no, wait, is this the best thing ever? And I probably ate that more than the chili mushroom. That guy who owned that restaurant, his son speaks fluent English. What was his name? Miki. Miki was his son. Beaky. It was either Miki or Beaky. Beaky. Pretty sure it's Beaky. And he asked me a question. I went there like 5 times before he finally started talking to me. And I just assumed most of the people that I had talked to regularly couldn't speak English. But then he asked me a question one day in flawless English. And then I answered, and then he answered in several sentences of flawless English. And we started talking about politics. And he had the coolest way of describing politics. I was like, yeah, corrupt. And he didn't know that word. So I explained, it's like when like the president takes money and then does a bad thing to the people because someone powerful paid him to do it. That's what corrupt is. And he understood, and he said the Odia word to me, and I was like, okay. And then he tried to describe it in English to confirm he understood it, and he said, it's like polluted politics. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And that was such a great, I think that's what he said. It was something like that, polluted politics. And I was like, that's a perfect way of describing corrupt politicians, yes. But his dad made chili gobi, and they made these great fermented soybean fried fritters. They were very soft, but fried on the outside, just like those idli. They had a different name, I can't remember. But I would get a few of those very often after I got my chili gobi, the chili cauliflower dish, at their place. And his dad made the best rotis too. So that's another reason I like going there. They were always very soft and pliable, so I could use them to pick up the chili gobi. Oh man, so delicious. Yeah, Beaky, I'm pretty sure. And I ate there. I mean, if I wasn't riding my bicycle up to the father and son who had all of the momos and the spiralized potatoes, which I wish I could remember the name of, but I don't know. I can't. Maybe it was just patat or something. Popdi, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I just said potato because I remember his son could speak some English, so maybe I just said potato when I went up there. But if I wasn't at that shop eating my favorite freaking snacks or eating 3 servings each of my favorite snacks, so it was a full meal, I was down with Beaky and his dad eating this chili gobi, deep red, incredibly savory dish that I felt was a little better because, there was a little less oil. It wasn't all deep fried stuff. And I was eating more vegetables. And I think they had mushroom once and I got it and it was just as good. But they usually just had the cauliflower. But that tasted so good. Such a great dish. Yeah, whenever I wasn't eating my potatoes and momo, I was down with Beaky and his dad eating my chili gobi. And I did try chili gobi, chili mushroom at other places. They definitely had my favorite version of that dish. So I always went back. Like, out of the first week, I ate at a bunch of other places. But then the whole last couple of months, if I wasn't having momos, I was having chili gobi. Oh, chili gobi. So I was cooking paneer myself. I would get paneer as a snack also, because you can eat it raw. It tastes awesome. It's just a bunch of fresh cheese curds. And if it wasn't raw, then I would cook it up a little. And I made a few different curries and sauces with my paneer. I found some curry boxes finally, because I didn't mention this, right? The craziest thing about Bhubaneswar is that curry isn't Indian. No, I did mention that in the first one. Okay, well, this is the food one. So anyway, Bhubaneswar people, all fluent in English, all told me curry is not a thing that Bhubaneswar, that Orissa people eat. They said Indians, but Mumbai people said they do eat curry, but all the Bhubaneswar people, all the Orissa people were like, no, we don't like curry. That's a bastardized English dish that doesn't mix things well. Meaning that the commonly recognized Indian curry in other countries, all the Indians that I met in Bhubaneswar considered that like a generalized bland version of a bunch of spices that didn't really correspond to traditional Indian cuisine. And I couldn't find it in the supermarket. It's just not a very popular dish, like generic curry. You can find vindaloo, but vindaloo is vindaloo. It's not just curry. But vindaloo, even vindaloo was like only in the big fancy restaurants. It wasn't really in the local shops. And there was no curry in any of the local shops. So I went to the supermarket and I went to 40 different supermarkets, all of them. I like walking around supermarkets anyway. And I was in one that I was going to for something completely different, and I realized I was staring at a box of pre-mixed curry powder, and it said on the cover, curry powder, pour it into your food and make curry. And I was like, oh, wow. And they had 3 different flavors. So I was excited because no one knew where to find it, and I had just stumbled across it after failing to find it for so long. And I was like, here it is. So there is curry in India. It's just extremely rare and nobody really makes it at home. And I made all 3 and they all sucked. There was just no pep to any of it compared to the regular food I was eating all the time. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked about Golgappa. This is going to be a long one, folks. Golgappa, not curry, is a fried dough ball with minced vegetables. And then the guy has one hand washing station, a little container of water, and then one big pot of a green sour soup. So he's cooked these puffy, hollow dough balls. Just a real crispy skin of dough, really. A large crispy sphere, maybe twice the size of a ping pong ball, 1.5 to twice the size of a ping pong ball. And the guy dips his hand in the hand washing station, will like wash his fingers, and then when you say, I want that, you get 5 per order for like 5 cents. It's nothing. And he takes a big crispy sphere out of the plastic bag of like 1,000 of them, sticks his finger in so it pops a hole in it, picks up a small pinch of vegetables, puts that inside the hole he just poked in with his finger, dips it in the soup, that green soup, puts it in a little bowl, and hands the bowl to you. And you eat it, and as you're eating it, he's doing the same thing, picking up a dough ball, poking his thing, putting the vegetables into it, dipping in the soup, and it gives you another one as you finish the first one you ate. And after you ate 5, he asks if you want another order of 5, and you go until you're full, and then you stop. And, oh, Golgotpa's delicious. The tangy, sour soup. I don't usually like sour soup, but with super fresh vegetables of, ginger and greens and potatoes, and it's just a delicious thing with the crunch too. And there's a crunch because it's a crunchy, crispy ball, fried dough ball around all this stuff. Very thin, like not even 3 millimeters. It's like a 1 millimeter crispy shell that he pokes his finger in. So there's a hole, puts the vegetable inside, dips it in the soup. So there's soup inside the ball. So it becomes a soup-filled crunchy ball dumpling. Puts in the bowl, and you eat it. And you can eat it in one bite. It would be a big bite, but that's how most people eat it. And then he gives you another one. He gives you another one. And you keep ordering them 5 by 5. And I did learn the numbers in Hindi, and I think they were similar to Odia, or at least everyone knew the numbers. So I could say how much I wanted after the first time I went. Because after the first time I went, I only got 5. I tried to order one at a time, and he's like, 5 order. And I was like, oh, got it. And after I got that first 5, I was hooked. If I'm not getting chili gobi from Biki and his dad, and I'm not getting those potatoes and momos from that dude and his dad, then I'm finding a Golgotpa guy. And I went to the most Golgotpa guys probably out of any type of food. Maybe because that's about as popular as Momo. I mean, it is everywhere. Everyone has a different stall for Golgotpa, and Golgotpa had the most variation. I think different people use different vegetables and in different percentages. And the soup's different, obviously. But, oh man, I loved Golgotpa. And Golgotpa is called something different in Mumbai and other parts of India. So every time I told an Indian person from a different region, they had no idea what Golgotpa was until I described it, and then they were like, oh, you mean Pani Puri, which is what they call it in Mumbai. And they said there's a bunch of names for it around the country. But Pani Puri is, I think, the more common name. And then, but I'm living in Bhubaneswar, which is not the most popular city in India, but it's huge. I mean, it was really cool. I was really glad I went to a less popular place and lived among the people, the real people, and didn't speak their language because I was terrible at it, but everyone was so nice. It was so awesome. And I learned Golgotpa, which I like saying more than Pani Puri, I think. Golgotpa is a bit funnier, and it makes me think of gulping down these foods. And I did. Some days I would eat 20 of those, which is a lot. Most people only had one order of 5, and most of the guys would get one order of 10. But sometimes I'd just be like, yeah, just keep it coming, man. It's too good. And even after I would eat chili gobi or after I would eat the momo and potatoes, if there was a Golgotpa guy on the ride home, I might just stop and get another 10 Golgotpa. So delicious. Because I wasn't drinking at the time either, which is a lot of calories. I wasn't drinking any alcohol. So I could eat more food in general and not get fat and feel crappy. Wait, I can do that all the time if I stop drinking beer altogether. Yeah, I'll think about it. So Golgotpa is definitely another favorite food of mine in India. And that one I discovered right away. So before I found the chili gobi and the chili mushroom and those spiralized potatoes, I was eating a lot of Golgotpa, and I was like, if I just ate Golgotpa every day I was in India, I would be perfectly satisfied and happy. And then I found those other foods that I liked even more, but I still loved Golgotpa. And so I got it a lot. I got it from beginning to end of my trip. And if there was a dude on the street with Golgotpa right now, I would go out and get some, even though it's outside my eating window. Oh, I'm glad I didn't forget about Golgotpa. That's like a serious, that was like a staple. That was part of my life as much as the cows were. At 5 p.m., all the Golgotpa people come out. And man, and there was, because the soups were different and the vegetable mixtures, I really did get like two favorite guys. And one of them was good, but I feel like the other one was like 5% better, maybe 10% better. There was just something about the soup that was a little more satisfying, but I couldn't find that guy every day. But when I did, it was fantastic. Yeah, if you have a chance to try this pani puri or golgappa, it's such a great, simple, healthy meal. You love it. You guys should go to India. I mean, it's going to cost nothing. The food's fantastic. The people are super nice. If you're worried about the language, like, there's a bunch of fluent English speakers there, no matter where you are. Remember, I am an hour outside of the city, and there are still a bunch of fluent English speakers. It's wild. Beaky, I want to mention. Beaky was a fluent English speaker. The guy with his dad who gave me the chili gobi. We had conversations. The guy who said polluted politics, which is such a good way of putting corrupt politicians. We talked a ton, and he's 30 minutes outside of the city. He's way out there. So I don't know how he got so good. He said he just liked it, studied it, and got good at it. And that's how everyone I talked to, they all said the same thing. They're like, oh, we studied it, so we learned it. And I was like, yeah, but wasn't it hard? They couldn't explain, except they're all great, brilliant people over there. I feel like I'm missing maybe a couple, but I'm not missing that many. And these are definitely my favorite foods that I ate constantly when I was in India. So I'll finish off with something I got a few times that I always really liked the first few bites of, but it's so rich and sweet, which I don't eat as much of. I don't eat a ton of sweet foods, but I believe it was called chana poda. And I got it from the same guy that I always bought my fresh paneer from, because he made the best paneer, and his was cheaper than the stuff in the supermarket, but it really was because it was a better quality paneer. Like, it tasted even more fresh than the already pretty fresh stuff in the supermarket. But next to the paneer, there was chana poda, which was a paneer cake, is the only way I can describe it, because that's probably accurate. It's paneer mixed with sugar and a couple other spices, and then they bake it like a cake. And when it comes out, it has a slightly different texture. It's a little creamier, maybe because of the caramelized sugar, and it's caramelized on top as well, but maybe because of the sugar melts inside, so it's a little smoother, creamier than regular paneer, which is more crumbly, like feta crumbly, not mozzarella crumbly. And you can choose how much you want to get, so you can get like 5 rupees or, oh my gosh, rupees. Okay, real quick before I finish chana poda. I love the Legend of Zelda video games and that whole world, and I've played them my whole life. And living in India was the first time I got to spend rupees, the name of the currency from the Zelda video games that I grew up playing and still play. I had pockets full of rupees, and I always thought it'd be so fun to spend rupees and have rupees. And then I was in India and I took out cash and I was like, oh right, they call them rupees here. And I was really excited because I got to spend rupees all the time. Zelda, fun stuff. Back to chana poda. So you could choose how many rupees you wanted to spend to buy the cake. So like, I want 5 rupees worth or 10 rupees worth. And I think the first time I just got 5, and it's a very thin slice. And it was so good. And every time after that, I got like 10 or 15 of the chana poda, 15 rupees. But it was always too much because it's very sweet. And it is paneer, which is very filling. But it is a delicious cake. So yeah, if you are in India and you have paneer, and then there's another, what looks like a caramelized piece of paneer next to it, that's probably the chana poda. And I mean, that dude makes it at home, so it's about as home-fashioned, classic, fresh as you get. And I didn't eat a lot of sweet stuff. I don't think I had many desserts in India besides the chana poda. Oh, wait, you know what? I did have traditional sweets at a friend's house, the brilliant student that I guess I'll have to get at in the 3rd Lessons from India episode. Shweta. They were celebrating Deepavali, and they brought all these biscuits and different treats out, and one of them was insane. It had like a homemade nougat inside. They were all good, but there was one in particular with a homemade nougat I think I really liked. But so that's the only other dessert I had. They have like these Indian cookies that have a name I can't remember. Thank you so much for listening. You know how much I love talking about food by this point, so this is probably going to be the longest entry in the India series, I'm assuming, since I usually talk about food way longer than I talk about anything else. Beep boop. Nope, this is Kai from the future. This is not the longest India episode. Boop beep. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com or bitofarambler on all the socials. And I hope you have a great, delicious food-filled day. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. There's one more. You know what? Okay, there's this candy, and I ate way too much of this candy. There was a cone ice cream. I had a lot of that. But this candy was basically just powdered sugar in tiny, soft, spiky balls, like little crunchy balls of powdered sugar that you just munch on. And they're sold in some stores next to all the snacks. And it says sweet candy sugar. And I'd buy them and I'd eat them. And I'd be like, whoa, these are great. Because I like that. I like powdered sugar condensed into a crunchy treat. And yeah, I know I said I didn't eat a lot of sugar, but you know what? In India, I think I might have broken that. I'd buy enough and fill up a little Tupperware container with them and then just munch on them as I was walking around my giant house. Because sometimes after I got home, I decided I want to exercise more, but I didn't want to go out. So I just walk around the house itself because it was a pretty big living room and dining room. And I would just listen to a podcast or whatever, play a game, whatever, and just walk around so I could get another half hour or hour of exercise in. Oh, I started playing Walkscape at the time. So to get all the steps in, I would, walk around that area sometimes. But inside the house, when I was doing that, walking around, I'd open the Tupperware for those little crunchy sugar candies, and I'd grab another handful. Man, I got so many bags of those. I actually gave myself a runny nose, which I haven't had in a very long time. But I just loved them. They were so simple, so delicious, and fun. They were fun to crunch, and then the powdered sugar instantly dissolved. Great, delicious, or whatever sugar it was. I don't know. I don't know what it was at all. It was a sugary, crunchy treat that was great. And I have to bring those up because they were my main sweet treat that I had while in India. I got maybe one every 2 weeks, I'd guess, because it is just sugar. So I would die if I ate them every day. And it's a bag of it. It's a pretty substantial bag. Oh, there were fried garbanzos. Shoot, you know what? The bean. Oh, I have to talk about that too. Okay, this sugar thing. Absolutely delicious. But I never found any in the wild. I just found them at this one store that sold a bunch of different snacks. And I got them, and it was next to the snacks, but I went out and I saw them in a farmer's market somewhere, and I tried to buy them, and the guy looked at me and said something I didn't understand. Another guy translated, and he said, "What do you want them for?" And I was like, "To eat, for snacks." And he said, "Oh, no, these are prayer sugars. They're just little pieces you put in a bowl for the gods. So they're not a snack." And I was like, "Oh, okay. And then I just left because I didn't want to tell them, I've been eating a lot of those. And I still think, because I also looked them up online, and Amazon for a while did sell these exact snacks that I had been eating. So I think there might be two different versions. There's one that's just for the gods, and then there's one for me. But I didn't ask anybody else because I didn't want anyone to tell me that they're only for the gods and goddesses, because then I might feel bad about eating them. And this way, I don't know. I'm not quite sure still. I eat them. Another person did tell me that it was an offering you can make to gods and goddesses when I showed them a picture of it, because I was like, what are these called? What's the name in Odia? And they told me. And I think I said something like, are they a snack? And they were like, no, they're more like for gods and goddesses kind of. They're more like an offering. And I was like, oh, I got it. Okay, thanks. And then I switched the topic so that I could eat the whole bag before anyone had a chance to tell me that they were only snacks for gods and goddesses, and I was specifically forbidden from eating that candy. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. Sometimes a little bit of knowledge is dangerous, but sometimes a little bit of knowledge is all I need. Also, but on the bag itself, the one I bought, it said, this is a sweet candy, enjoy. So that kind at least was made to eat. And they were selling them on Amazon as a candy for people to eat as a snack. So I'm fine. I didn't offend Durga or anybody else. They get it. I bet gods and goddesses like candy anyway. Okay, wait, the last food that I totally forgot about was that I like beans now. I like lentils. They have all these fried, spiced lentils and beans, and they're the best fried, spiced beans I've ever had. It's just like you would buy a bag of salted peanuts in the store, except these aren't boring. They have like 15 different spices coated all over them, and that was definitely another favorite snack I got. But it's lentils, so it's like super healthy, and it's super delicious because of all the spices. Okay, so those are the last two snacks I think I have. All of the delicious beans and lentils, crunchy, spicy snacks I ate, and then those sugary, compressed powder sugar crunchies that I loved and enjoyed. I had to get those in there because they were a not insignificant part of my diet while I was in India. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for hanging on. A couple extra bonus minutes. Oh, and if you know what the crunchy white powder sugar balls I'm talking about are, let me know what that candy is called, because I'm curious. Bitofarambler@gmail.com. Talk to you soon. Bye.